So what we're going to do is learn, so these methods basically get triggered, during the life cycle of an application. We can also write our own methods. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So the simplest way I can do this is in the constructor, which will remove the unnecessary constructor error, useless constructor. This will remove that error. We're going to set this dot state equals and then an object, and what we're going to set is a property called count is 0, and I'm going to hit save. Now this does nothing right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to get that count variable into the render method. We're going to type let, and then we're going to wrap in curly braces count equals this dot state. And what this does is it basically gets the count variable from the state. Now we're going to need a button. So in the span right here, let's say button, and let's just add in, click me. And then in the h1 element, I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to replace it with the text, you clicked the button. Now we're going to print the count variable here, count times. So I'm going to save this. We're going to come back over to our browser, and it says you clicked the button 0 times. We haven't clicked it yet. And if I click it, well, it doesn't do anything because we haven't rigged it up yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a method here called handle click. And this is the way we're going to be writing methods so we don't have to bind them ourselves. They're going to get, it's a variable equal to a function. It's just how we're going to do it. So what we're going to do is in the button call, so in the handle click, so let's rig this up right now. So on click. Now this is a property. So if we render, well, we'll get to that after. So notice it's camel case, so on click. So the HTML5 property is called on click all lowercase. This is going to be different. If you're migrating static HTML with JavaScript handlers to React, this is going to be something you want to pay attention to. So what we're going to do is equals and then curly braces. All right, now we can pass the event. It can so we can capture the event of the button click, and then we're going to send it over to this dot handle click. All right, so good so far. Save. I'm going to go ahead and open up our browser, and right now this does nothing still because our handle click function doesn't do anything. So for right now, very simply, I'm going to console log clicked, just so we can actually see it do something. I'm going to save it. Now let's go back over to our application and have the console open and click the button, and we can see now it's actually, clicking it and doing something. So that's good. Now it's important to note that if you don't have this bit right here, it's going to try to do this consistently in your application. See, as soon as it mounts, it calls that function, and it doesn't do anything else. So we need to have something. If there's no event, you can just put brackets and then the arrow. We're going to pass it this function. So on click, this happens. Now, really what we want to do here is we want to update the count variable to how many times they've clicked the button so that it will print out down here in the render method. So there is another built-in method to the React component called setstate. And this takes an object as a parameter and an optional callback, which we won't be using right now, but I'm sure we will get to it. So we're going to type this dot set state, also camel case, and then we're going to pass in an object. All right. So what this object is going to be is the new state that we want to set. So we're just going to set count to more than this state count. So count is going to be this dot state dot count plus 1. And I'm going to hit save. So now we have everything rigged up and we're going to finally see the fruits of our labor. Let's jump over into our browser and let's start clicking this button. See this? All right. Now that we've got a handle on how to work with the state, we are going to, I was going to do something. What was I going to do? Oh, right, the component did update. Which takes a props and a state. So right now I'm going to console log updated from, and we're going to print the old state, to this dot state. So I'm going to save this. And we're going to go back into our browser, load up the console, and click. Now the first time we do this, we're going to see updated from the old state, which is count equals 0, to count equals 1. And every time we click the button, that event, or that function, gets called, or triggered. So that is how to work with the state of a React application on a very basic level. Now we could do something really stupid here. Now, let's do something really stupid. Because every time the state changes, this method gets called, we can do something really stupid in here and set the state. So this dot set state, and this is going to produce an error. We're going to set it to this state count plus 1. And the error that it's going to get is maximum depth exceeded, and that basically means how many times, how deep can a state change go within one state change. So I'm going to click the button and we're going to see everything lock up. And that's because this is repeatedly triggering this to happen. See? Which is very stupid. However, we can hook into the component update like this. I'm going to set a property in the state called over 10 to false. And then what we're going to do here, we're going to say if this dot state dot count is more than 10, this dot set state over 10 equals true. Now this is also going to have, it's also going to spit an error. So let me just show you guys this h3. Beat high score of 10. Save. Because what's going to happen here is the component's going to update and it's going to say if it's over 10. So this is going to trigger an error when the state gets updated to 11. And then we're going to get the maximum depth exceeded. So let's go back into our application. Oh, sorry. That's right. So so that always is going to say beat the high score of 10 because we haven't added any logic. So what we're going to do is we're going to write some more JavaScript embedded in the HTML here, or the DOM. we're going to basically do an if statement in kind of an inline way. We're not going to type if, that we can't do that. But we can use ternary operators. We're going to just open up some brackets here, and we're going to say this dot state dot over 10. You could just leave it at this. This will resolve to true or false. And we're going to say question mark. So if it is over 10, if that returns true, do something, and a colon, otherwise null. Otherwise we don't care. So I'm going to copy this and paste it up here. So now if over 10 resolves to true, we're going to print out beat high score of 10. And this operates the same way as a top level wrapped component. We can't have multiple top level elements. If we wanted to, we'd have to wrap them, just on a side. So let's go back into our application and prepare to destroy this application once we get to 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then when I click this one more time, we're going to get the maximum depth exceeded error, because what happened was it updated to 11 and it called this function and it's like, oh, it's over 11, so I'm going to set the state to over 10 equals true. And then this setting of state triggers this again and it gets stuck in an infinite loop. So what we can do is add a little bit more logic here to sort this out. And that's, so if the state is over, if the count state property is over 10 and this dot state doesn't equal state, so this means if the state has changed, so what we can do is actually the state count. So we're going to only have this called if state is if the count is over 10 and if the state count is not the same as the new state count. See? So this is only going to make it trigger once. So I'm going to come back into my browser and we're going to click this. So that just happened once, because when we set the over 10 to true, this is going to trigger this method, but the old state count is going to be the same as the new one, so this won't get triggered again. Now this will get called repeatedly every subsequent. So let me console log here. Updating over 10. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to watch the console here, and I'll show you what I mean. Every button click after 10 will trigger that update to reset over 10 to true, even though it's completely unnecessary. So we're going to add a little bit more logic here in a sec, but for right now, just click up to 10. We don't get any logs, and then one more time, we get that update over 10. So it's setting over 10 to true again, and we keep clicking it, and it keeps setting it, which is unnecessary. Right now, it doesn't really matter for performance, but you're always going to want to keep in mind of having a minimum amount of stuff happening to save performance. So we're going to say, if over 10 is false, then we need to set it to true, right? So after that happens, every subsequent button click that changes the count and the count is over 10, we're also going to check and this dot state dot over 10. So we're going to say and not. So if this resolves to false, then we will set it. This makes sense? So we're going to save it and refresh the application, and we're going to see that over 10 getting set just one time. And we beat the high score of 10. I'm going to click, and we see that it's not setting that property over and over again. And we've just made this application, this very basic application, about 50% more efficient. And that's very important when you're working with React. It's very easy to get some errors in your React applications just because of not thinking in the React way. So that is how to work with the state. In the next video, we're going to, I guess we'll talk about the properties itself.